So Kylie introduced me. I'm Stephanie Wilson, and I work for NetImpact Strategies. NetImpact has been a trusted advisor driving net impact through digital transformation for the federal government for over a decade. NetImpact partners with customer agencies to deliver high-performance, secure digital solutions to transform client operations and accelerate mission outcomes. Our comprehensive digital transformation 360 capabilities empower our clients to not only meet their missions, but also recognize their strategic vision and achieve impactful and lasting value. So I'm going to set the context here, give you a little bit about our purpose today and our flow, and then tell you about our speakers, and we'll jump right in. But we're going to translate all the jargon, talk realistically about the focus on customer experience. What does it mean to all of the federal customers that we all support, that we care about, as well as the service providers who support their mission, the technology partners who assist with building or maturing the customer's capabilities to improve customer experience. We'll hear from Microsoft about the specific products that enable this, and then from a couple of federal leaders who have established reputation for innovation and advocacy of the customer experience. They're on the forefront and are recognized for customer experience. And they were doing it before our attention and our resources were mandated to tackle these important capabilities. We've carved aside a few minutes at the end for audience Q&A. And go ahead and be specific if you're looking to direct the question to a certain person. I'll make sure that we direct the question to a specific panelist. Steve Winward is the Director of Technology and Special Management at Microsoft. He focuses on Microsoft's federal business applications portfolio, including Power Platform and Dynamics 365. 10 years of software development and IT experience. And his personal mission is to allow create app makers within the government instead of relying on traditional software development flows. I know internally we even are out developing some apps and doing great things, Steve. So looking forward to having him speak. We have David Goff, who has been introduced as well. 25 years of leadership in finance, acquisitions, and accounting, not just in the federal government, but he's been on our industry side as well. He is an integral part of DHA's database decision-making process and progress, including helping to stand up a new governance process and serving on the board to accommodate organizations that were previously managed by the service branches, but they're now folding into DHA management. And that's just what he does for fun. Beyond that, he's been influential in hands-on support to senior executives in creating an agile technology culture. You know, we're all trying to get away from the lengthy processes, and he's really made some headway there. He's also served in the U.S. Army within the 82nd Airborne Division as a paratrooper. Thank you for your service. And last but certainly not least is Kevin Coyne, the Director of the Office of Technology Evaluation at the Bureau of Industry and Security at Department of Commerce. That's a mouthful. He has 20 years of success building strategic capabilities for large private and public organizations. Anytime you've heard about Section 232 investigations, like the ones on steel, aluminum, and how we change export controls and tariffs based on those results, you're hearing about the work that Kevin's team does. So you can imagine how much automation is important to his group. Not only the two departments within Commerce identified as his, Kevin has a very interesting customer base that includes foreign vendors, American citizens in our supply chain, and other federal agencies using OTE's research and analysis, including the White House. I don't think a lot of people necessarily know Kevin's organization and the impact that they have. So I'd like to share that. And another fact is Kevin served our country as well as a U.S. Army aviation officer and Black Hawk pilot. So thank you as well for your service. I am going to share now and have an infographic up. I'm going to be honest with you. Hopefully you all have, you're at home with your large TV monitor screens up so that you can really check this out. It's actually quite fascinating. But I want to give you a little bit more context on this. President Biden in Executive Order 14058 states that the government is of the people, by the people, and for the people. It must design and deliver services with a focus on the experiences of those people. Government must also work to deliver services more equitably. Frankly, I know this is on all of our minds, especially for the people that have historically been underserved and marginalized. The key areas of transformation follow the themes of cross-agency, transparent, simplicity, accessible, responsive, confidential, equitable, secure, and digitized. Examples are federal websites easy to navigate to get information or submit information to how to apply for things. How do I fill out this form? How do I go back and find out if I'm struggling? Like, did it go through? I wonder what the status is. Our FAFSA applications for all of our children, all of their applications, USDA's online filing permits, and how do we, continue to resolve system and process disparities that become barriers to the underserved, specifically thinking about VA, the integration of va.gov with login.gov, getting rid of duplicate sign-in options, outdated digital products that would really alleviate a lot of the confusion. How can we remove barriers? DOL is streamlining state enrollment and renewal processes and eliminating face-to-face interview requirements. They're also working on requiring pre-populated electronic renewal forms instead of enforcing everybody to come in and re-enter data. I think that we're watching things change in front of our eyes today, the world we live in, and we're going to see a lot more changes coming. So I mentioned HISP earlier, the 40 high impact service providers. These are the largest container base or service impact. For example, IRS, $240 40 million tax returns, 122 million refunds, SSA handling 55 million spouse and dependents. HISP leaders under the Council of OMB will designate a priority list of services to improve each year based upon the moments that matter the most. So again, a lot of changes. I'm going to touch also on the president's management agenda. Again, setting the context for these gentlemen. The PMA is the administration's priorities set across the federal government, and it directs government agencies. Our leaders are taking their direction here and making improvements in customer-facing services, digitizing these services, and then how do we measure the performance? The three priorities: strengthening and empowering the federal workforce. 2, delivering excellent, equitable, and secure federal services and customer experience. And 3, managing the business of government to build back better. Today, in that PMA, we're going to focus on priority 2. We talked about the customer experience, and we're going to focus on those core customer experience functions. So measurements, governance and strategy, customer understanding, and human-centered design. So again, applying the human-centered design relates to software development, to service delivery, and thinking about what our customers need, how do they get their needs, and that includes access and speed. I won't go into a lot of examples on that. I think you get where I'm headed with this. The excess paperwork, creating the burden to the public. How did the customer, receive services, especially the ones on key life experiences, and how long that takes, the burden, the wait time, the tax time on us. But lastly, service design and improvement Improvements in service design and delivery are expected to be planned for based on empirical research. Feedback as well. You know, how do they give feedback? So experienced drivers or service quality, process, people. The HISPs are asked to focus on managing customer experience and provide the additional level of reporting on a quarterly and annual basis. So 2 steps: collect the feedback and assess the capacity. And as of current state, 100% of the HISPs have already completed their customer experience capacity assessments, and all of them have met with OMB for a deep dive on the improvements and how to budget for those. Customer experience has always been an important consideration of any service organization, and our federal government is no exception to that. You know, NetImpact, I know we focus on it constantly. We have a deep commitment to that quality and how our customers obtain services and products to serve their respective customers. And we've made a significant investment in this because we see the world changing and how important this is. And you know, happy to talk about much more of those later, but now we're going to get to some of the more interesting speakers that we have here. And we're going to start off. Steve, hopefully you'll be ready to go here. I'm going to hand off to Steve, who is a fellow JMU Duke that I found out today. And it has always been a deciding enabler, Steve, and having the right products in place changes not only how quickly we can support the mission, but how well. Based on what we know about customer experience and what it requires of our already overextended public servants, what does Microsoft offer to help?
Thank you. And thank you, Stephanie, for that introduction. Once again, my name is Steve Ward. I'm a technical director at Microsoft Federal and really excited to get to chat with everybody today. I also wanted to mention that at Microsoft, we are incredibly committed about building the strongest community for Federal specifically around business applications, which is what I'm going to be talking about today. We have a public GitHub repository for all things business applications where you can find demos, proof of concepts, white papers, sample solutions. It's all there. And we're going to keep evolving this over time to make it better every single day. If you want to check it out, there's the link right there, aka.ms/fedba. Please feel free to check that out. Similar to this webinar, we do a monthly webinar series all around business applications. If you want to see the past content that we've done, it's on the GitHub repository linked to a YouTube channel. So you can watch those after the fact on demand if you'd like to. Now, specific to government, from a cloud perspective, we at Microsoft are really proud of the investments that we've made. Microsoft, we own the concrete to the data centers that we operate our software out of. We own the fiber and the infrastructure, and then we own the software that we deploy on top of that, which I think is very different from a lot of the other cloud vendors out there. So we're really excited about that. And what it also means is that we are committed to the federal government to meet you all where you're at with your security requirements. You'll see a few acronyms here. You've probably seen this before if you're dealing with Office 365 today. GCC, GCC High, DoD are just a few examples of Office 365 services that we provide for the government today. Now, I wanted to just set the stage in terms of where do these products fit in terms of all the different products Microsoft has to offer. So Office 365, we talked about that. Most federal agencies are already using that today. On the other extreme is Azure, and Azure are our world-class developer services that you can build incredible applications with. But then in the middle is what we call business applications. And that's really targeted at business analysts, people that traditionally don't write C# or Java or JavaScript code, but what they do know is they know the federal government mission incredibly well, and they want to be able to build applications to tailor that. That is what Power Platform and Dynamics 365 can do for you. And then really being specific here, we're talking all about customer experience executive order. One takeaway I want you all to think about is for Microsoft, these are the products that we have to offer that are very much targeted towards modernizing customer experience for the federal government. And I'll talk about these in a little bit here in a second. Also, by the way, every single one of these products is FedRAMP today, and every single one of these products has a federal agency already in use in production today as well. Now let's start with the story here. Let's say hypothetically you're a federal agency, you have a support team. How would you manage that? How would you manage the caseload? How would you manage tickets that are coming in? Dynamics 365 is our solution for that. And then you could sit back and say, well, what if we wanted to enable internal employees to have self-service? Well, the answer to that is we can seamlessly integrate a Power App into Teams for them to be able to do that and to be able to create tickets to support that. And then you could say, well, what about leadership? How do we present to leadership the great work that the support team is doing? Well, to solve that, Power BI, our analytics and dashboarding capabilities are right in there with Power BI. And then you can say, let's take it a step further. Stephanie mentioned she did a great overview of the executive order. One of the key mechanisms of that is feedback. How do you get feedback from both internal federal employees, other employees at agencies, or even constituents? Dynamics 365 customer voice, that's the solution to use that for. And you can get feedback and automate that. When a case is closed, automatically pull somebody to get status. What are we doing well? Where could we get some improvement, right? How could we then report that to the public? And additionally, what if you wanted to have constituent US facing citizen activities? How would you do that? Well, one option is a Power Page, formerly portals with Power Platform. So you can have secure portals, low code that you can serve your US constituents with. You could take it a step further. You could even create a chatbot inside of that portal so that potentially you could offload the need for some of your live agents so you could help answer some of those simpler questions for folks as well. And we mentioned Power Pages. This is just a quick overview of that, but at a high level, low code, you're not writing custom code, and you can secure it and govern it the way that you need to for your federal agency. And this was a cool example. So King County, which is a county inside of Washington State, they've actually transformed the way that they do their mission with creating over 200 applications on the Power Platform, including the use of Power Pages, which is really cool. And it's streamlined a lot of the operations that they've done historically. Power Virtual Agents may be my favorite product that we're talking about today. And what I like about it is it's so easy to build and create branching and decision trees. And you can step-by-step actually debug it as you're developing it in real time, which is really fascinating. And what I want to show here is this is a live example. So what I'm showing is not just smokeware or vaporware, but this is live in production on Veteran Affairs website today. You can go there, it's beta. This is the Microsoft Power Virtual Agent live on their website. Here we're going to ask a question. What is my claim status? The bot comes back and says, in order to do this, you do need to log in. Do you want to? We'll click yes. When we do that, it then prompts for sign-in. Stephanie mentioned integration with login.gov, for example. We have extensibility and you can customize this to whatever the authentication that makes the most sense. But I wanted to show this is live in production today. Also really cool on GitHub. So if you want to check this out and some of how they've been doing that, you can go to GitHub to view more on that. Now, I mentioned customer voice as our survey capability in the Power Platform. And what I like so much about this is it integrates with all of the other things that we've talked about today very seamlessly. So whether it's Dynamics or Power Platform, you can integrate it really easily to get feedback and to get surveys. And I want to mention that while in the example I showed, you could do it internally for federal employees, you could just as easily do that for other agencies if you're serving them with that. Or you could you could send polls to US citizens as well. It would work exactly the same in either of those cases. And then lastly here, I'm going to end with one example end to end to kind of showcase all of these things together. We're looking at a Power Page or a portal right here, which is a low code portal. And what we're going to do is we're going to show a chatbot experience and what that would look like from the customer perspective or the citizen. And what would that look like from the agent perspective, right? Actually trying to answer the question for them. So what we've got here is we have a chatbot. The chatbot is going to fire off. In this case, it's going to initiate and it's going to say, hi, I'm a virtual agent. How can I help you? What is your name? My name is Sue. Pleasure to meet you. What would you like to learn about? And you can see there's options here. It's not just free text, but you can provide users with options that they could pick from. In this case, Sue wants to learn more about AI. So there's a pre-canned response that comes back from the virtual agent. But at this point, Sue says, you know what? I need a live agent. This isn't exactly what I need. So I'd like to speak to an agent. So now in comes the customer rep, the live agent here. So what happens? They pull up, they've got Dynamics up and running. This is their kind of single pane of glass to see what's going on from a service perspective. They now accept this request and they can see everything that the chatbot had been talking to. So they see the full context. And now they can put a canned message to say, hi, I'm Bobby. How may I help you? Sue is then going to then say, I need some information with regards to AI. Bobby's also going to say, in order to do this, I need a little bit of context. So Sue's going to provide her last name as well as address. At that point, Bobby, the agent, is actually going to go in here and is going to verify with the records that we have, with the context records that we have, is this the person we think it is? So let's look for Sue. We look at Sue, and then we can also say, okay, here's Sue's address. Here is Sue's last name. Okay, cool. That is the person that we know that we're talking about. Now, at this point, the customer service agent has realized that there's also a knowledge base. There's a built-in knowledge base into Dynamics, and it makes it super easy for her to find common things that customers are asking about, and we can get a response directly back to Sue. Unfortunately, however, that's still not what Sue needs. So now Bobby has recognized that he needs to bring in another agent to be able to help with this. So he can actually, in the same window, reach out to Carlos, who is the resident AI expert. And now Carlos is going to be added to this thread and be able to see the full history. And now Carlos is going to work to be able to facilitate closing this case correctly. So Carlos is now going to start typing to Bobby directly, and then he's going to reach out to Sue to now hopefully close this out. So now Carlos is going to be typing, hi, I'm Bobby's colleague. We also provide image and object detection with AI. Does this help answer your question? And then Sue says, yes, thank you so much. So that is kind of end to end. What would this look like completely? How would you serve your constituents? How would you serve US citizens through the use of the business applications platform at Microsoft? But even cooler, there's also analytics and reporting and dashboarding that you get out of the box with this solution as well. So one for a supervisor, as well as from an administration perspective, if you're trying to get metrics or throughput, or when are periods that are really high when we need more agents, and when are periods that maybe we don't need as many agents. I know that I just covered kind of a whirlwind of things here, but I wanted to just give a glimpse in terms of what is Microsoft Business Applications? How do we meet the needs of constituents and employees for customer experience? And I hope that that gave you an overview. As I mentioned, we do have a GitHub repository for all things federal business applications. Would love for you all to check that out. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out too. But Stephanie, thank you. Thank you for passing it over to me. So appreciate that.
Thank you, Steve. That was very impressive, actually. You know, I'm just fascinated. Even though I know the product, I still find it fascinating to learn more. And your example was fantastic. One question for you before we turn over.
Sure.
What is one challenge that your federal customers are facing when they are trying to transition to these more modern platforms?
I think there's a few. So I think one is that they're faced with a challenge that, you know, US citizens, they don't only do service with the federal government, right? They do service with lots of commercial industries. For example, United, right, for flying or any other things. And so they have very high expectations and they have a high bar that they have because of the private sector. And so I think one challenge in the federal space is how do we compete with that, right? Because the citizens, they want that same experience. But also, I think that they have the need to not always have just custom solutions to do this, but low code, I think, is a great way to go about this in a way that's secure and also that integrates with their ecosystem they already have. So we think the Microsoft Business Applications Suite really fits really well because the majority of federal agencies already have Office 365 today, and it's a great way to kind of tie that in.
Well, okay, excellent. Well, that's really great to know. And I also think that's a fresh perspective thinking about private industry and gives us all something to work for. Wonderful. We're going to now move to David Goff, who's been a lifelong proponent for platforms that enable agility, autonomy, so that our mission experts are directly empowered to build solutions real time provide analytics, and have better data driven decisions. David, thank you for joining us. Can you share what you and your organization are currently tackling?
Yep, absolutely. Appreciate it, Stephanie. Thanks. So as Stephanie mentioned, I'm the chief of the financial planning and analysis function within the IT directorate of the Defense Health Agency. I know that's a mouthful, but basically my primary role within DHA is to provide decision support to senior leadership as it relates to our financial plan. And so as many organizations have the same function, in the context of DHA's mission, we've got to remember that the Defense Health Agency, and many of you might not know, the Defense Health Agency is a relatively new organization. First coming on board in 2013 and really coming to full operational capacity by 2015. The mission was to bring Army, Navy, Air Force, military healthcare together under one umbrella. And so, obviously that comes with some pretty major challenges. Among those, being 136 plus military treatment facilities across the globe and their various cultures, all bringing them within one resource structure. And so, there's obviously a whole slew of issues that we were facing to bring those organizations all together. Can't say we're 100% there, but we'll call it 99.9. Over the course of my time with DHA, and I guess I'll show the slide here real quick. So hopefully what you're looking at is not my background with a bunch of desktop shortcuts, but a timeline of how financial planning tools within DHA MIT have evolved. As you can see in that top left-hand quadrant there, in 2015, we began DHA where, in essence, all three services, Army, Navy, and Air Force, came together. They had their own systems, their own planning tools to use. At the time, it was Excel workbooks. And so that was our primary source of data and decision support were the various, what they called checkbooks at the time. Fast forward to 2017, DHA, we adopted a headquarters model so that we could at least see within the headquarters where all of our data was at, all of our financial planning was. And a little bit better, right? We iteratively got better from the multiple workbooks across the MHS military health system to at least one workbook. By 2019, we adopted an access database, primarily because we realized it's tough to manage data in Excel when it's 60,000 rows deep. And so we adopted an access database. Continuing through that evolution of the IMIT financial planning tools, we finally adopted a web-based planning tool. We've branded that Ectropy, and so within DHA, it's become widely known as the down to the check level detail for financial planning, showing all of our requirements. So we still had the issue of, from a financial planning perspective, as the chief of FP&A, still had the issue of not being able to consume that amount of data, across the globe, even when it's coming out of the web-based portal. And so we realized pretty quickly back in 2021 that we needed to institute robotic process automation. And so for us, the advancement of that tech to our first robot, in essence, saved us more than half an FTE. So a significant number of hours, bringing that data out of the system. And so here we are today, tackling the next iteration of that, which is a whole additional series of RPA bots. By the end of 2022, we should have 5 bots in play and a pretty robust pipeline of additional bots. And so I know Steve had the opportunity to talk about chat bots. I'd love to have something like that implemented within DHA, because we're constantly answering the same questions over and over again. It's a perfect opportunity to put those bots to use in answering those questions. So as I'm hoping, as folks are listening to our brief here today, begin to think through those things that you just continually do over and over again, and it's repetitive in nature, tedious, but it takes you forever. It has to be done. It takes you forever. Implement that bot. And so that's what we're currently tackling within the IT directorate. And so it continues to evolve from there. We do have a future view, but we can talk more about that as we go forward. So Stephanie, that's in essence what we're currently tackling. From a governance perspective, I will say, I did mention, we have 136 MTFs across 3 different services. And so how do you make decisions for those requirements that are coming through the pipeline? For DHA, you develop one consolidated resource decision strategy, right? And that comes from the framework that you're using for making decisions around that architecture. And in the top right-hand corner, I show you an example of how that takes place within DHA. So functional requirement is defined. Basically, the doctor identifies that they need new equipment. They need new service for the customer. Then the resource strategy is determined. This is where my team is primarily serving. And so that is giving senior leadership the ability to fund new equipment, identify what that strategy is, and ensure that resources are balanced. Then, of course, it moves forward to executive approval, where we receive the go-ahead to purchase the equipment. And, of course, you buy the equipment for the doctor. The doctor now has use of it. I go through that just to explain that small little piece within that second window. As I walked through the top left-hand corner in the evolution of our financial planning and analysis, I'll tell you, back in 2015, when a doctor identified that requirement, it was multiple weeks, not to go from end to end, functional requirement to requirement procured, just to establish your resource strategy. It was multiple weeks. And so the impact that going through that evolution has on that primary mission, right? Doctor identifies he's got to serve his customer being patients. Narrowing this window as much as we can is what we are truly focused on. You can see here, we go from multiple weeks back in 2015 to single week as we continue to iterate downward. 2022, we're down to 1 or 2 days within this resourcing strategy to determine that. And so that doctor is able to now serve his customers much better. It's important to link those 2 aspects of the tech that you're producing or the tech that you're bringing into your portfolio, link that to your mission. And you'll be much better served, not just from a adoption of technology, but also in achieving your mission, primary mission here being to serve the patients.
David, I'm assuming that you are using these metrics to build business cases to finance more improvements. That's
100%.
That is incredible. I mean, that's so obvious to me that I would want to continue to fund this. The customer experience executive order requires a thoughtful design or redesign of the way we deliver services with a focus on the experiences of the people. We talked about this, right? Who they're meant to serve, while service design requires an organization to plan, right? People, process, tools in a way that improves employee experiences so that customers' experiences are enhanced. The intent is to rethink service design focusing on value, for example, service delivery of IT, data-driven decisions over top-down, and sharing insight over gatekeeping. Does DHA place emphasis on this? If so, what initiatives are being put in place?
Oh, 100%, 100%, and so a lot of Department of Defense is top down, as unfortunate as it is, you achieve a budget, you develop a budget, the next year you make adjustments to that budget from the top. DHA IT is a little different in that, we're tasked with a zero budget, net zero budget. And so in order to achieve that, while bringing in new technologies, while, adding new equipment for customers that we just talked about here, means that you have to have a bottoms up view. And so we absolutely adhere to data-driven decisions. That's the only way that really you can maintain a zero-based budget while bringing in new services. You have to find the offsets. In order to provide that, you've got to really hone in on those data-based decisions, and we do that from bottoms up, looking at every single requirement across the MHS. The $3 billion budget that we have. So it's quite tedious, but again, the way we achieve that is through utilizing this tech and bringing new bots on to help us with that decision support.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm so curious how you brought up earlier all the other organizations folding in. I can't imagine. I mean, I know dealing with other cultural change is hard. What are some of the cultural challenges that you've had to face with each organization having their own IT and process? And please don't be biased to the Army here. Tell us how it really is.
Well, the Army's all squared away. That's just the way that works. No, yes, all kinds of cultural issues, really, organizational cultural issues. Setting aside the fact that it's a global-based organization and you've got the obvious, disparity from time differences. There is Army that is very different from Navy, which is very different from Air Force, not just in how they go about, achieving the mission for their customers, our customers, which is the military, but also in their processes, right? And so you've got Air Force that may take a different view on how budgets are allocated, where it's allocated, versus Army. Well, and so the answer to that is to bring them actually in the decision-making team. And so you're no longer talking about multiple cultures, you're talking about their culture and the processes that they have to, work towards bringing together. And you can't do it from a headquarters perspective. I shouldn't say you can't do it. It's much more difficult to do it from a headquarter perspective and, look down into an organization and say, lo and behold, this is how we're going to do it. No, it's, bring them into the fold and, have them put their skin into the game, I guess, if you will.
I think we have time for one more question before we moved on, but we talked about the core functions defined in customer experience, right? Measurement, strategy, governance, culture, understanding. I could go on and on. While DHA is not defined as the high impact service provider that we mentioned on the infographic, being held to a higher degree of accountability and reporting to O&B, do you see a transition with DHA specifically improving in these areas, customer experience in these areas? And is there a specific one that jumps out to you as having the most?
Is there a specific one that jumps out? Yeah, I mean, we're doing so much across the DHA with regard to consolidating technologies. Again, with the different organizations, Army, Navy, Air Force, they're bringing in their multiple solution sets as well. And so, the folks on the phone may not realize, but there is an effort to bring all military records into one, and that's called Genesis, right? And so we are standing down those technologies and how we maintain those records while we were in the services, and replacing that with a one for all. And I think that's the largest thing that DHA is working towards, is that consolidation effort to Genesis, so that your military records are in one spot. You can share that data across all providers, and then gain efficiencies. And I'll be selfish here for a second because I'm the money guy, right? Gain those efficiencies and cost savings to be redeployed into these other aspects that IT is managing. So I think that's probably the biggest component there.
Well, thank you, David. And I think we need to move on. That was fantastic. I learned a lot, and your metrics are very impressive. Thank you.
Appreciate
We've
it.
heard a lot now about the complexity of DHA, for sure. Kevin, as the director of OTE, you know quite a bit about running an organization that has one of the most unique customer compositions in federal government, in my opinion. To empower his team by improving the employer experience, Kevin's at the forefront of introducing new technologies, enhancing existing agility capabilities. He uses self-service, low code, no code. And Kevin, I'm going to put the infographic back up in case you want to reference it.
Well,
I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Stephanie. Actually, I was going to send my slide deck, if that's right, if I share it, if that's fair.
Please share, absolutely.
All right, fantastic. So just a quick update on Kevin Coyne with the Bureau of Industry and Security. As previously mentioned, within our office, we have two separate divisions, really three. We're focused very much on data analytics. So a lot of the reporting that you'll see out of whether it's Russia sanctions or other items in the Wall Street Journal or the New York Post or New York Times or the Washington Post really come out of our office with a variety of just data products and analysis. We're also very familiar with the defense industrial base, and along with that, the 232 exclusion process, which I think to date has rendered almost 400,000 decisions. So it's a significant amount of work that goes into rendering a decision, and I'll kind of get into the overall process down here in a few slides. We focus primarily on trade data as it relates to supply chains and other a variety of other items. We're very focused on the impact of export controls on U.S. interests and the capabilities of the U.S. industrial base to support the national defense. So that's really what our office is focused on. And as you can imagine, there's quite a bit to get to. So when we look at the programs of the office, we go out and do a lot of survey development to understand what's going on in the industry. So a lot of one-on-one interactions with customers and businesses. Commerce is really, we look at the 12 bureaus, we're very much G2B, so government to business interactions, or while we do have citizen contact via the census, we also have a lot of contact with companies and what those companies are doing as it relates to a supply chain or other sort of efforts from a business standpoint. So we're very much open for business and focused on business as an overall agency. So it's important that those relationships are managed appropriately, and customer service and customer experience play a significant impact through the overall process. But we focus on a variety of these areas, critical emerging technologies, these investigations, but we can't do that in a vacuum. So we rely on input from industry, and that interaction, that G2B interaction, is super important to what it is we do. And the example that I wanted to walk through as part of this presentation was our most recent efforts as it relates to Section 232 exclusions, which involved a multiple of companies, but also government agencies. So when we look at the primary actors, obviously the Bureau of Industry and Security, DHS, Customs and Border Patrol, who are very focused on the importation of a good and whether that good should be tariffed at 25%. So imagine if you're an oil company you're importing some pipe or some other product, you're going to pay 25% on that product. So you want to make sure that that a U.S. producer cannot produce that same item, and if that's validated through our process, you would avoid a 25% tariff. So as you can imagine, it's a significant amount of money involved in these transactions that are going back and forth. So time to delivery, absolutely critical to improve the time that you may have to hold an item in inventory, because that's going to cost storage costs and other sort of individual costs. You can imagine these businesses are reliant on the government to provide a smooth process and an effective process. And then there's obviously the International Trade Administration, who helps as part of our overall process. So we've got 3 agencies, thousands of customers trying to get through a set process, right? Which we only have 15 days to respond to. So part of the regulation is once the president renders a decision, the agency has 15 days to implement said item. So we had 15 days to put together a process. So as you can imagine, it was a bit of a clunky start, and you can go in and read sort of the JO, OIG reports on part of that. But if you read it as the process has matured, we really focused on improving that experience, improving it for business, improving it for customers. And I think the data that I'm about to show reflects that. And I'll kind of talk about that no-code, low-code solution that we leveraged in some of the Microsoft offerings that was super critical in an accelerated timeline that was some of the fastest that I think I've seen in government, which has been fantastic, I think, for not only for the G, but also the B as part of that experience overall.
Excellent. So the step 1 guidance for service design and delivery is to conduct empirical studies based on the voice of the customers. Have you kept a temperature check on the customer experience, and what improvements, if you have has been made in response to what you've heard?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what we have seen and what we really motivated us is from the customer perspective. We were looking at the best way to improve overall processing time. So we utilized a no-code, low-code solution to develop a portal. But what we were looking at, and this is sort of our process capability, we looked at 58 days is really what the businesses were experiencing. And then by applying low-code, no-code solutions, we were able to bring that down to 45 days. And we did that through customer feedback, right? Customers were telling us it's taking too long to do that. It's taking too long to roll out a solution. So we were able to put together an exclusions portal utilizing Azure, utilizing these low-code, no-code solutions and a cloud-based system to really put together a timely solution that improved our overall processing time. So it was significant when we looked at what the customer experience it was. And when we go out, when we utilize, requests for feedback, the Federal Register process, but we ask for industry feedback on what it is we're doing, and we take that into account as soon as possible. But we also try and do it in real-time feedback, where we reach out with companies and improve our overall processing of these exclusions, as a really good example of how best do we improve our overall process. So I definitely think there's a lot of feedback that would not have been done if we were not reaching out to what customers were experiencing in real time. Because when they don't, what happens is you'll get letters from obviously congressionals, and that just creates more work for everyone. So by not having a recognized process in a low-code solution, because that's what businesses are looking for, and they're looking for it in a way that is a seamless process. By doing that, it allows for the sort of those one-offs or those issues to get resolved quite timely. So as soon as we roll these solutions, what we recognized was that congressional correspondence was cut to nearly none, non-existent. But before, you had to do all these additional congressional saying, hey, how do you improve the process? How do you improve the process? Well, rolling out low-code, no-code solutions in a super timely fashion, really cut out a lot of additional legwork that was going on in the back end. So, it's something we were able to quickly leverage and take advantage of. Where in the past we may go out and have, Java developers and really kind of going more through like I'm not saying a waterfall approach, but not an agile methodology, and one that wasn't, you have coders on board, and it's a significant back end to roll out a solution, where in these low code, no code solutions, you've identified a workflow, you've identified a process, and you can roll it out in a timely manner.
Excellent. I think we have time for one more, and then just as a reminder to the audience, we'd love to answer your questions as well. So what can you give us an example? I mean, clearly both of you you're using your metrics. So you are showing what is the time that savings or whatever the metric is to build your business case. What solutions have you advocated for personally in the agency? And then what success have you seen from that? And maybe on the same vein as a success, has there been a pitfall? Because we always talk about our successes, but if, do you have a pitfall to share as well?
Right. No, absolutely. I think we're very focused right now on rolling out additional features that are already exist in a FedRAMP kind of solution. So we're leveraging very much Microsoft solution, Dynamics 365 sales, which I always think is funny because everyone says, oh, it's sales, government doesn't really do sales, but really it's a way to manage your customer base, right? We're getting inundated with emails, inundated with responses. How do we, as the government, help our folks that are interacting with the public with a methodology to ingest these requirements and then manage them appropriately, right? With chatbots, with RPAs, with cloud flows, with other overall workflows. And what we've found that the solution that Microsoft has offered to us as an agency has been very extremely beneficial. And for me, it was very much the easy button from a security standpoint, because I could reach out and it was already FedRAMP, it's already on the strategic sourcing vehicle, and I recognize there are other sort of products that exist out there. But for us, it's like, where's my acquisition easy button? And as a department, rolling out strategic sourcing vehicles allows for these kind of rapid solutions. But if you're in the program office, if you're not aware of what the technology is and can't integrate it seamlessly into your architecture, it becomes a bit of a challenge. So you've got to really think about, what are my workflows? How am I doing business? How are my analysts working? And then how do I quickly integrate those processes and business processes into my architecture so that I can roll out solutions in a timely manner, so I can do development, testing, user acceptance testing, and dropping things quickly into production, right? Using a lot of the existing features and functions that exist. So, that type of activity for us has been, extremely important. Those low code, no code solutions are already out there. They already exist. How do we as the federal government quickly integrate them to achieve the executive orders that are set out in that executive order, right? And some of the other areas. So it's pulling that all together, I think, is extremely important throughout the entire process.
Well, this has been incredible. I mean, again, we're going to take a couple questions here, but really want to thank both you and David for speaking from a government standpoint, sharing your success, sharing some of the great things you're doing to advance customer experience. And Steve, you as well. Your example was great for us to be clued in on. My daughter's in the Army. So she's out using, she'll be using Genesis as her electronic health record, and eventually be in the VA. So all of these things, I'm not unique in the fact that all of these are so personal to us. But, happy to take questions. We have a few minutes. If there are any coming in, let me look here.
Stephanie, I just want to say I did respond to one chat during this. There was a question around using the virtual agent, specifically around like confidential, unclassified information. Without understanding the requirements totally, there is a way with Power Virtual Agents to force people to do Azure Active Directory authentication, which is the same that you would do for things like Office 365 internally at a federal agency. Without understanding the requirements completely, that would probably be the way to go on that, but something that would definitely be worthwhile, like doing a much deeper kind of session to fully kind of understand those requirements there.
Okay, thank you. That's good. Great. Here's a question for David Goff. Beyond financial planning and performance, what other kinds of data do you think is most influential to the decisions that an organization is making about investments? I know you must think about health data because it's so close to the mission, but is there other data types?
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I would say the risk parameters around your requirements, I think is a big aspect that's often overlooked. A lot of times us in IT, we like to think and plan and of course, assume that everything's going to occur as planned, right? And that's not always the case. And so what are those parameters those risk parameters around the requirement, and how are those risk parameters factored into your decision, decision support? So I think
Excellent.
that's a big one that's often overlooked.
So we're down to about a minute, so I'm going to just take one last question here. It looks like it's for you, Kevin. What type of transparency has Department of Commerce established for the convenience of the public?
Sure. So, I mean, obviously, we're very focused on transparency and how we deliver our solutions. So when we look at low code, no code solutions, we're looking to say what should be publicly available, what should be public facing for us to share our data, share the solutions, right? We're the data agency of government. So when you look at trade data, census data, patent trademark data, how do we best use data.gov, other sort of solutions to generate APIs so it's easily ingested from a solution, right? So when you pull up your MyRadar app on your phone, that's commerce data, that's NOAA data. So all those data, the Zillow data, census data, all that's coming from commerce, right? So how do we best produce these APIs and front-end data so they can be monetized, but how business can be created, utilizing those solutions, utilizing those APIs. So that's something we're very focused on as an agency. We're very focused from a data governance board. It's one of the things we talk about, on a weekly basis with our CDO and others, like how best do we share our data where appropriate, so it can be, ingested to the public to improve public services. So it's definitely something that is integrated closely with our business processes.
Thank you. I'm going to take one more. I hope nobody minds. We just had another one come in. So both of you seem like you've successfully implemented customer experience and that competency within the organization. Dave, we'll go back to you. Quick answer on what lesson learned would you give to an agency that is just starting down the path? Oh, you're on mute.
Mute. Okay, so I would say start small. Take the easy wins. Within that easy win, you're going to find those processes that need to be implemented across a larger organization that ultimately you're looking to be in terms of your technical implementation. So I would say take that smaller win and establish that.
All right. I do want to be very respectful of everybody's time. I think you guys created an incredible panel, and I thank you so much for asking me to moderate. I, of course, would like to close answering the last question myself, because I think you should just hire NetImpact and Microsoft. And yes, you can all laugh at me because I will always be who I am. Thank you all so very much for joining. And I think you'll get some more follow-up information from our webinar today.